Keeping on that theme of global, we're pleased to welcome one of the most innovative social entrepreneurs. The organization has been referred to as the Robin Hood for the developing world, and it is my pleasure to introduce Paul Niehaus to the stage.
Every once in a while we learn something, right, that changes our perception of a problem so fundamentally that it changes a sector with it. We saw this happen to investing. Starting in the 1970s, a guy named John Bogle started promoting the crazy idea that a passively managed index fund could outperform the great minds on Wall Street. Now, I believe that the same thing is happening today to international development. And I believe it's happening because of another crazy idea. The idea is giving money to poor people. If you think that's crazy, I'm glad you're here and invite you to listen on. The problem which I work on, which you would be seeing if the slides were available, is the problem of connecting donors here in the US to beneficiaries abroad, seeking the most effective way to help. This is a problem that we've been working on for around 60 years. And we've come up with a solution that looks something like this. The donor will typically give to an international organization that manages money. They'll use some of it to raise additional capital, and then they'll work with local partners in developing countries to implement programs. These folks also manage money. They're going to work in conjunction with the international funders to select the mix of goods and services that will be delivered to the poor. So this is the system we've built. And as donors, we don't love it. We don't really know what things cost. We have these metrics like program services, but we know that they don't really measure anything. And it's hard with the different layers of subcontracting to know. And we don't really know what things do. We have a lot of success stories, but far too little of the real, rigorous, put up or shut up evidence that tells us with certainty what works and what does not. So it's not a perfect picture. But for 60 years, it's been unclear whether we could do better. Because a fundamental assumption underlying this picture is that we have to manage the money on behalf of the poor because they can't manage it well for themselves. We worry about this, right? What if they just drink it? In fact, when we were getting started at GiveDirectly, folks asked us if we were smoking crack. But here's the thing, and if you take one thing away from today, let it be this, that in the last decade of rigorous, scientific, randomized impact evaluation work, across dozens of studies and across dozens of contexts, what we've learned is that it's the exact opposite. The poor have an enviable track record of putting capital to work to improve their lives. Increasing nutrition, increasing health, increasing education for their kids, decreasing child labor, increasing earnings, even increasing the hours that they work. So what we've done at GiveDirectly is step back and said, what if we consider something simpler? And we built a model that looks like this. You get it, right? We take money from donors and we give it to recipients. Now, there are a lot of things I love about this and would love to share with you, but let me highlight a few. The first is that it's very transparent. Fundamentally, we do two things. We find poor people, and we monitor payments end-to-end into their hands, which means we can explain what we're going to do with the donation and what it costs to do that. The second is that it doesn't cost very much. It's very efficient. Right now, it takes about 10% for us to do this, which means we can put 90% of a donated dollar directly into the hands of a recipient. And keep in mind, all of this money is program services, right, in the old accounting. These folks are extremely poor. Our average recipient is living on around 65 nominal cents per person per day. And the way to think about that is, if you bought a latte on your way in this morning to our little gathering, that represents about 1 week's budget for our typical recipient. Now, how can we do this? We get to use amazing payments technology. This is a recipient who just received money from GiveDirectly on his mobile phone. You see, we live in a world where I can sit on my living room floor, and in the early days of GiveDirectly, this is literally what I would do, and upload a spreadsheet with a list of phone numbers and amounts into a website, hit send, and money goes out into remote parts of the African countryside. That's an amazing fact about the world that we live in. That was not true 5 years ago, and that's a game changer. We also get to use great management technology in the field, and a lot of that is Google technology. We audit everything that we do in the field using timestamp data, geostamp data, photographs, satellite images. Everything is digitally auditable, and that's the foundation on which accountability is built. These slides are in really bad shape. The photographs of recipients which we get uploaded to the cloud for auditing. And every one of the recipients that we speak to over the phone gets to tell us about their experience. Everything from whether they had to pay a bribe to collect their transfers, to how many minutes it took them to walk round trip to collect the money, to whether they have feedback for us on the user experience. Right? And so the technology for doing this is exciting and only getting better. But here's the thing that I love the most about drawing that straight line from the donor to the recipient. The thing I love most is that it changes the way we think. See, we know cash transfers are not going to replace everything. We're still going to need to build some roads. We're probably still going to need to discover some vaccines. But it gives us a benchmark against which to evaluate those ideas. You see, the challenge for us now is to build organizations that can prove that they create more value for the poor than they cost to run. The way you could think about this is, if you can ask, is active management worth the cost when you invest because of index funds, then at GiveDirectly, we're going to let you ask the same question when you give. Thank you very much.